Thank you for giving the opportunity to speak about our work. So I am a bacteriologist and my lab studies how bacteria make their cell walls. Bacteria, as all of you know, are very ubiquitous and unicellular, and they come in different shapes and sizes. As you can see some of the examples here, they are of different shapes. And as I said, they are extremely ubiquitous, present everywhere, almost everywhere in the universe. And you can see that in a human body, we have more microbial cells than the human cells, approximately 3 times more, which would indicate that they have to live in extreme fluctuating environmental conditions, right? So to protect themselves against these stressful conditions, almost all bacteria have a cell wall, which is made up of an elastic polymer called peptidoglycan, right? So this peptidoglycan is a large polymer. It's a single molecule. You can see schematic here. The purple colored one is the peptidoglycan, and you have to appreciate that the single largest molecule, because I'm going to talk about its structure a little later. So this is a large net-like molecule which encases the bacterial cell and protects from the environmental conditions. Now, this slide shows the chemical composition of the peptidoglycan. So now, when you see these purple strands, as the peptidoglycan suggests, it is made up of two kinds of molecules, small peptides and the glycan strands. Now, the glycan strands are again very simple disaccharides, which we will not go into the detail. But these glycan strands are attached to the small peptide chains. You can see these 4 dots here. And you can see that these amino acids are very rare amino acids, do not exist in nature because they are made up of D conformation, and also that it has a very rare amino acid called mesodiaminopimelic acid. Now, just with these glycan strands and with these small peptides, it forms a huge net-like structure because of the property of the cross-link cleavage, where the adjacent peptide chains are crossing with each other, thus forming a net-like structure surrounding the bacterial cytoplasmic membrane. There are 2 types of crosslinks normally in several bacteria. There are variations, and these are between 2 different amino acids, D-alanine and mesodiaminopimelic acid, or between 2 mesodiaminopimelic acid residues. So now, the next slide represents again a very simple schematic of bacterial cell cycle. Right? So it's extremely simple. Now, if you take a newborn cell, put it in favorable nutrient conditions, it elongates, essentially grows in size, and then the chromosomes replicate, they segregate, and in this mother cell eventually divides to form again 2 daughter cells, which again go back into the cycle, and this is how the bacterial cell cycle goes on until the nutrients are reached. Now in this step, you can see that in the elongation step, the newborn cell has to grow in size to become a mother cell, right? So as the cytosolic volume grows, it intuitively says that even the bacterial cell wall, which has the peptidoglycan saturation in it, also has to grow in size. So what it kind of says is peptidoglycan needs to expand in size during the step of elongation, and the cell growth is directly coupled to the cell wall growth, right? And people have historically used the step of cell elongation to inhibit the growth of pathogenic bacteria, because several very well-known antibiotics such as penicillins and vancomycins inhibit this step, thereby the cells do not grow to form adult cells. Now, this hypothesis that a newborn cell to become another cell, the cell wall needs to expand, forms the basis of my work.
So several years ago, we asked this question: how does a PG sacculus grow in size, right, when cells are growing and then become? As I said before, peptidoglycan is a single large like molecule. So then, how does that expand during growth of a cell without compromising on the pore size on the peptidoglycan structure? So there was a lot of evidence available already in the literature to say that the new strands of peptidoglycan, the glycan strands, are incorporated into the body of bacterial cell. However, the mechanism was not known before. So the hypothesis was that the new strands, which are indicated here in red, get incorporated diffusely here, thereby the helping to facilitating the growth of the cell. So we asked the question that the cross links which we have seen earlier, which are seen between these glycan strands, their cleavage, is it important for peptidoglycan expansion and hence for the growth of a bacterial cell? In this bacteria is Escherichia coli, an extremely well-studied gram-negative bacteria. So using several genetic and biochemical approaches, which I'm not going to go into detail here, we identified the enzymes which cleave these crosslinks. You can see here that they are colored one type of crosslink, which is between two MDAP residues, is colored in red. Other one is in black. So we identified two types of crosslink cleaving enzymes. One which is represented by MEPK. MEPK stands for murin endopeptidase. Murin is another term for peptidoglycan. And in this case, D-alanine MDAP crosslinks, which are indicated in the black. There are three redundant enzymes which do similar enzymatic activity in this case. So what we have shown is all these four enzymes are essential for making the peptidoglycan enlarge. So these four are important for the growth of E. coli cell. Now, you can see in this schema, the cleavage happens. So the new synthesis, which is indicated in this red arrow here, happen immediately. So which means the crosslink cleavage should be extremely coarse. So this is an E. coli mutant. Those cell wall hydrolases, you can see that this on the left side is a wild type E. coli cell. Of the cell wall hydrolases, they lyse rapidly, saying that these hydrolases are essential for growth. This is a simple analogy which I am putting up. If you imagine that this rod-shaped cell is a room which is made up of bricks, then what you can actually see is to break the bricks in order to make spaces for the insertion of new material, which is eventually filled up by the successful expansion of the peptidoglycan sacculus. You can see that if the synthesis do not hydrolases cleave the cell wall, and which is lethal to the cell. Now, So which again would mean the step of PG hydrolysis is extremely controlled, and this is rate limiting because once hydrolysis is initiated, it cannot go back and it has to go only. So now to summarize, what we have shown is the cell wall hydrolysis is fundamental for its expansion. It rather takes the synthesis of peptidoglycan growth. And we have shown this initially in E. coli. Subsequently, several other groups have shown that same thing happens in Bacillus, Vibrio, and Pseudomonas and Streptococcus. And then we have shown that this is a highly controlled process at the step of post-translational stability and is rate limiting. And inhibiting these cleavage enzymes is an extremely good strategy to kill bacteria because it is the bacteria. So currently we are collaborating with some chemists, enzymes which are not known before. So I have spoken only the work of 3 students here, and this work has been funded by CSIR, CCMB, and Department of Biotechnology. And I thank all of you for the attention, and I for this quick, summarizing the whole work. Thanks.